Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and I have my good friend in the I don't know on the episode today with me, Mr. John-Paul Berg. JP, welcome back.
Great to be back, man. It's I've been watching a lot of your episodes in the interim, so it's good to be back speaking with you. I feel like home here.
Yeah, it's your home away from home.
That's right.
Why don't you tell us, what's your perception of what's happened with the election so far?
Let me turn this phone down. Apologies for that.
Kirk Reese says, "Good morning from exile." Hello, Kirk.
So yeah, I was on with Jason James probably about a week before the election, maybe even a week or two, and I predicted it. I figured Carney was going to win a minority, and I figured Pierre was going to be very, quick to acknowledge the government and not question any of the results. And that kind of came to pass. But I mean, anyone could see that. So I'm not trying to tout that. But what I'm hoping is just moving forward, let's be a little pragmatic. It's like until we realize this like uniparty dialectic that's going on in Canada, this they're clearly working in tandem. I don't think we even have a hope for any type of reform. People are just it's like they hacked our tribalism, and we're so like just watching the last couple of weeks of that election, watching like the right kind of attack each other, the conservatives and PPC kind of going back and forth. It's like, man, until we realize that it's not hockey teams, you don't worship your leader. Like if someone has a valid or relevant criticism of your leader, you should ensure that there's a good answer for that and lead them that way and not be offended, because we have this like natural inclination and propensity to just jab back. It's like, you've insulted my leader, and it gets us nowhere. The only proper way to frame this relationship between the citizenry and the state is adversarially. It works best with that premise. And what you see is this like really petty party tribalism and just people jabbing at each other and us essentially getting nowhere. So my dream from this, because it was obviously a really terrible result, but I would like to see people kind of realize that we need an alternative. It's not going to be the Conservative Party. They're entirely controlled opposition at this point.
After the election, I've had maybe a dozen people from all walks of life tell me that federal politics is dead. Like the only way out of this is if we use the provincial system.
Yep.
Do you think that like the Conservative Party, is it ever going to recover from this?
I don't know, man. It can shift so fast in this climate. I think that the most pragmatic way to have gone about this initially would have been to try to take the Conservative Party over. Now, obviously, I believe, and I've written about this extensively, that Pierre was, I think the whole thing, like everything is contrived. I think it's essentially an elaborate charade to provide the debt-ridden subjects of this colony with the illusion of participatory governance. I think they knew there was a lot of disenfranchised Canadians. There was a large contingent of the electorate that did not trust the government at that point. This is like right after the trucker protest. So I mean, they started to see that because they were creating it, obviously, and they preemptively propped Pierre up, I believe. And I believe they did this with this thinly veiled populist shtick to kind of capture us and to get us. And like a Pied Piper with sloganeering, feckless rhetoric, we all followed him, like a large majority of well-meaning people. Like I don't want to shit on these people because I was one of them. I bought into it initially too. Of course, I didn't. You don't realize the depth of it until you start to really immerse yourself in these narratives and see how deep the rabbit hole goes, essentially. But I don't know, man. I think it's very abundantly clear at this point, and I'm glad to see. I'm actually relieved to see more and more people saying it out loud. Like when I make a post about Pierre criticizing him, I'm getting more likes and less people saying like, oh, just support Pierre, bring it home, right? It's almost like we're getting to that point where the paradigm is shifting with it all, and more people are starting to be awakened to the reality of it.
The election, it was obviously people get more hostile during an election period. Now that the election's over, the people that are attacking me are no longer the Conservative Party supporters attacking my anti-conservative stance. They are liberals attacking my like anti-tax policy stance. So all is back to normal.
Yeah, and the show goes on. I seen a meme somebody shared. Would have been Clyde do something, but it was like it was indicating that Carney was the lullaby required to put Canadians back to sleep. Obviously, a certain demographic of them for sure. People really liked Carney. So I mean, there was. I have a friend that does political polling for a different company. It's like from home remote work. And he would call me after a shift and he's like calling areas of Ontario. And he's like, you wouldn't believe it, man. Like, and people are just have no problem, like just spewing the rhetoric that they were programmed to spew. It's just like, you know, it's elbows up. We gotta save it from Trump. It's such a fear machine. And it's like that dialectic. It's like classic Leninist controlled opposition. It's like one dog scares you to the right and the other dog scares you back to the left. And despite this apparent back and forth, you're consistently going towards more centralized control. It's just different flavors. And it seems like, I think it's been going on right across the Western democracies. I've come on with you before the election and referenced that Pierre Poilievre was like a Boris Johnson character. Just a globalist, just another variety of it. And I think that's right. But unfortunately, where he didn't win, like if we had had Pierre in there and he had blatantly failed, maybe we could have realized it more, at least more suddenly, more abruptly, in order to attempt to change this trajectory.
Hey, JP, why do you think they hate Trump so much? And when I say they, I mean sort of the left.
They were programmed to. I think if they were told tomorrow that something absurd, I think they would regurgitate that too. I think we're so like just immersed in. Sometimes I feel like we're in this complex system, and we're going through some kind of phase transition, and we're all just these individual nodes, and there's certain stimuli that's put out there, and some of us will react to the stimuli. And some of us won't necessarily, but we will react to the ones that are reacting to the stimuli. So you see these effects happen. And again, I go back to mass formation or ideological subversion. And it's happened in the culture. Like, let's just take, for instance, just to illustrate my broader point, anthropogenic climate change, like man-made climate change. Now, I'm 41 years old. I'll be 42 this summer. I remember being a child and watching a very popular animated series in Canada called Captain Planet. And the premise of the children's cartoon was like the vilification of industry, the vilification of any growth or industrial progress, because all of the bad guys fit that archetype. They're these bad polluters. And then you had this group of like pseudo-moralistic hippie kids that were like, they were going to fight these bad polluters. And it sets up Gaia as a worship. You know what I mean? Get away from worshiping man and more to worshiping nature from a philosophical level. But as a kid, no one's thinking of those philosophical implications. You're just absorbing it. You're like a little sponge, and you're put out there. And like so many parents now, and even in my era, growing up in the 80s and 90s, you were put in front of a television, and the program was starting there. It was like it's very subtle in its manipulation.
Yeah, I remember that show, Captain Planet. I watch it every once in a while. It was, if I remember correctly, it was a diverse, multicultural group as well.
It pushed all of the narratives, right? And you just accept it. Like I said, when you're getting it, we're multi-generations into this. I think the decline in the Western democracies in general started to happen in the 60s. I don't know if it was entirely, I don't think it was entirely organic. I recently read Chaos, the 1960s, and Charles Manson, and it was indicating that a lot of these social movements could have been potentially pushed by government agencies looking to ideologically subvert and to push the culture in a certain way or away from certain things. I mean, I'm getting into very hypothetical and very conspiratorial territory there, but I can't look at all of this and just presume it's organic anymore. It seems like we're being just so manipulated that it's just profound to me. Sometimes I got to step back and like tether myself to reality. I remind my wife, because I'll go on these rants. It's like, honey, I can hear myself, and I want to ensure you that I'm not crazy. Because like you're trying to interpret this, and you can't help but speculate into these dark spots.
You got a little pupper over there?
I got a 150-pound cane corso, and I've been lucky enough thus far to not have him have an episode like this in any of these, but evidently that streak is over.
I have a border collie and a German Shepherd. I used to take him with me on road trips in my truck, and I swear I'm losing my hearing. Like when they start barking in the truck, like a gun in an enclosed space.
Proximity too, like when this guy's next to you and he barks, it startles your soul. Like I'm a large man. I'm waiting for they'll find me just curled up, and you'll know goddamn well it was that dog with the thunderous bark.
All right, JP, we're gonna go to a very insightful observation from the audience. I want your feedback. Okay. DJ says JP is a loser if he thinks we need to join the USA.
Well, there you go. I've very much kind of ad nauseum expressed my position. This was never a desire for me. It's kind of the better of many bad potential scenarios that I see. And again, kind of framing everything geopolitically, I still feel something might happen. Let me touch on that a bit, because this was our thing, the 51st state. I want to see what the king is coming for on the 27th. I want to see, is he just going to reiterate climate change and being welcoming to more migrant communities in Canada, or is something going on? Because there's a lot of speculation and there's not much to go on with it, so it's total speculation. But what if there's some kind of an economic union coming? What if there's, because I don't know, man, that whole talk with Carney and Trump prior to the election, and then Trump just stopping all of the rhetoric, that was his favorite topic, was the 51st state. And then he's like, oh, I talked to Prime Minister Carney, and he seemed to have some kind of a rapport there. Like, was there some kind of deal made behind the scenes? And like, are we going to hear it? I'm going to say right now, I'm going to proclaim it on inlay terms that if we do not hear anything regarding an economic union or a 51st state after the 27th, I am entirely letting go of that. I'm not going to post about it anymore. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to look for another more practical or pragmatic solution. And that's at least just advocating for people to wake up and see the uniparty in Canada, because it's never been this evident. Like, all the chaos in society geopolitically and all of the fracturing that's happening is providing the electorate with a very unique perspective. We're kind of getting to see behind the curtain a little bit. Like, look at that leadership race with Carney, man. Like, two popular underdogs are just removed, and then everyone that's left is like an insider, and it's phenomenal, the circumstantial implication of corruption. Because again, you can't say it. There's no evidence. People are like, well, where's your evidence? It's like, where's your eyes and your common sense, bro? Like you're just going to accept this now and say, well, like, of course these guys are careful to not leave evidence. But there's a preponderance of circumstantial evidence that kind of indicates certain things are going on.
Do you think they're just going to be able to sweep this under the rug, or do you think that they've overplayed their hands? Like, take Guilbeault, like they just put that bastard back in.
I just can't. It's all entirely proportional to how we react, and the apathy and the complacency in Canada has always been next level through the duration of my life. So I mean, I hate to be cynical, because I'm truly not. That's why I'm trying to tell people, like, I'm really not like trying to bolster my ego or anything, man. If I was going to do social media, I would be speaking more about philosophy and psychology. Like, that's what intrigues me. I'm on here trying to, because I see something. I think I see something. I sincerely do. And it's terrifying. And I'm trying to determine what other people see. What are other people's conclusions of this? Not what were you told we're watching, but like, what's your honest opinion? And I really think that the biggest thing we have to do as Canadians right now is wake people up to the corruption in the system, specifically with the two parties that have been running the show.
Well, what do you, if this 51st state thing doesn't pan out, what is your next sort of go-to step? Is it Alberta?
For me personally, I'm honestly, Payman, I'm pretty established in Nova Scotia. My wife's mother's older. She lives here. It wouldn't be opportune for me to leave. With that said, I don't know if I really, if things really start to look that way and it's wide open, I might try to go for the Hail Mary and get up to Alberta. My brother-in-law too, him and his family live in Montana, so it might be interesting to look into some legal options for getting in. But I mean, that would take so long. I'd probably be in the gulag by the time it was approved.
If you go through the southern, well, I guess you can't do the southern border anymore either. Trump's got that locked down.
Stick out like a sore thumb down there.
You could go to South Africa and then try to come in that way.
That's not a bad idea, bro. Not a bad idea. It's a risky one, though.
A couple of my friends, we were joking, like, is it possible to like go to the US and claim refugee status because of Carney?
It depends what he does. Sincerely, I thought that myself to make some inquiries as to how that would work. Because if he's putting political dissonance, and I'll tell you right now how this is going to work. And again, this is conjecture. Any slight deviation from his rigid and radical orthodoxy will be construed or characterized as dis, or malinformation. Any criticism, any legitimate criticism of his policies will be construed as hate speech. Dissent won't be tolerated in that regard. And they want to normalize that. Like I say, my perspective is the first group of people that are picked up for speech violations after they pass this bill, or however they do it, they're going to be made examples of, because they really don't want to waste resources enforcing this. They just want us all to be good little debt-ridden wage slaves and not question the authority. So if they could accomplish that by terrorizing us, essentially, by grabbing the first group of people, throwing massive fines on, house arrest, however they're going to do it. But I mean, this is not going to be received by the international community very good, especially in this climate with Trump kind of underlying the premise of how important free speech and expression is. So it's going to be interesting to see it play out with that dynamic.
So Prairie says 100% we are in trouble with our freedom of expression. I'm looking at the government that Carney's inherited. We don't have an economy. I saw a podcast earlier today, just brief introduction. The guy said, 20% or what was it, 80% of the people that have been hired in the last few years have been for government. That's wasted money. That's not productive.
That's right.
So you're like, what's going to happen? Like, they're suppressing the speech of people, but there's no economy. How are you going to feed these people that are going to be angry?
And that's right. And this is like every socialist government system we've ever seen, right? The socialism is causing a problem. So they externalize culpability. They blame the capitalists. It's the greedy grocers. It's the greedy landlords. They externalize culpability, pin it on them. And then their solution, get this, more socialism through more government regulation. So it's the proverbial snake eating its own tail. And we've seen it time and time and time again. And yet people still get lulled into it. And I don't even think that, like, a lot of people will present this as like people are critically analyzing this and then they're choosing it. No, none of them know what it is. They don't understand the way it stagnates an economy. They don't understand that it's going to lower everybody's quality of life. They just, and it's seemingly, I think I blame the education system. There's reasons they don't teach Canadians much about economics. I mean, they don't, or like the functional premise of our government, it's not like required stuff as a high school graduate in this country. My daughter graduated last year, and I would go over some of her work with her in her senior year, and it was just total, absolute Marxian propaganda. It was unbelievable. Like the divisive racial group stuff, like the intersectionality. There was book reports, and you could tell that the questions are very leading. It's like they give you a story about an indigenous student who has encountered some problems, and then he ends up quitting school. And then whose fault is it? Is it his mother's? And it's multiple choice. So they're leading you, and they're clearly looking for a certain answer, because it's not attempting to teach children how to critically think or analyze. It's pure inundation with Marxist premises. It's ideological subversion, and they're very successful with some people. Now, for me personally, and I think most parents that are paying attention right now, they're providing context to the curriculums that their children are being kind of inundated with. So like my daughter's fairly based, considering But I had to really explain it to her and make her, like, teach her how to critically analyze, like really think about this, these scenarios they're giving you, and who is culpable for this. And if you don't accept culpability on an individual level, if you keep blaming another group or society more broadly, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be miserable to top it off. You're just feeding the resentful dog that lives in all of us, right? And once he gets big enough, he takes over, and then you're just bitter for the rest of your life. I meet those guys all the time.
When the election was going on, you mentioned Marxism. I'm driving across the highway, and there's a highway overpass with one of those like genocide in Palestine flags. And so I said, you know what? I'm running for office. I'm going to go up and just talk to these guys, Olive Branch. They absolutely hate America. And the guy's like, America's interfering with our Canada's politics here. And I'm like, yeah, but at least it's better than Iran interfering. The guy's Middle Eastern, I'm Iranian. And he gets in my face and he's like, why is Iran's, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm like, they're whipping people. They're like, give me one example. I'm like, they whipped my uncle. And then he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And like, they hate America, and that's their starting point. And it's very Marxist.
It 100% is. It's revolutionary in its fervor. The Palestinian cause has very much been hijacked by Marxism, and some of the premises that underlie it, like this, it's a colonialistic state that was set up, and there was an indigenous population that was dispersed to make room for it. It fits all the criteria, so naturally it does. And there is some people that have legitimate criticisms of Israel's response, and it gets lost in it, right? And everything's just fired up to a fever pitch. The division in society, it's like you're watching the news stories, and even with this white genocide, with all of the conflict in the world, and it's like they're trying to foment more racial division, as opposed to the alternative. Like, let's find out, because there's a million things we could fight about. There's a million things to kind of cause disunity, but there's not very much that unify us. But there are some core premises. Like, we're all human beings in a certain area. Like, we're all in this country together. Like let's try to put emphasis on the things that unite us. It leads me to something else. I've been thinking this for a while. Tell me what you think. It's like, do we need ideological uniformity in order to have some semblance of unity? Like, can we come together for some like basic precepts of humanity and kind of live together without wanting the other parties to be entirely ideologically uniform to your views? Because it seems like this right-left dichotomy, the conservative versus the liberal progressive mindset, is utilized to further divide the populace and the electorate. It's like, I don't know, man, right now what seems more important to me and a lot of other people that are paying attention is the division between the individuals and the populists and the globalists. Like, that just seems like it's like the people and the status quo, as opposed to this right-left political dichotomy. Like, it just seems like that's being kind of turned up to a fever pitch as well. It's just division on multiple dimensions.
Yeah, I think you're describing, like, what are our shared common values. And along the election trail, the campaign trail, the question was asked, like, what does it mean to be Canadian? What is the Canadian dream? And most people can't answer it. I think it's because no one's really asked that question.
Big question, man. You and I have came upon this topic before. And it's like the CBC, one of the main premises for the initiation of it was to create a national identity amongst disparate groups of Canadians, separated by lots of miles, and kind of as a preventative measure from our culture being absorbed entirely by America's culture to our south. So, I mean, it's like we never really got to figure out what being Canadian meant entirely, because we were told it. As long as we can remember, we were specifically told. And one of the most fundamental precepts of what we were told and conditioned to believe is that we're way better than Americans, and our system is way more humane, and we're better because we're far more liberal and we're more evolved societally. Like, it's a very arrogant stance, and you see it. Like, man, I remember seeing it when I was a kid. Oh, those crazy Americans, from family members, like older family members, like watching the news, those Americans are crazy. And I'd always be inquisitive, like, well, what's the big difference? Because I'm watching American television and the culture seems identical. You know what I mean? What I'm seeing is it's not like there's some big incongruency or contrast. So like what was that? I couldn't understand that as a child. I still can't presently.
Up until even as recent as like 2 years ago, I would go to parties and dinner parties, and you got a huddle of men, and they're like, "Oh man, America is so violent. There's so much gun crime." Fast forward 2 years, our violent and non-violent crime in Canada has exceeded the U.S.
Yeah, per capita, 100%. It's very dangerous, man. And some of these policies in Canada with our approach to the homelessness problem and the drug addiction problem, like, and now I'm not going as extreme as what you're experiencing in British Columbia with some of the safe supply issues, but I mean, even in Nova Scotia, where I am in Halifax, like all of our public parks now that were beautiful locations, they're all full of tents and encampments. So it's like, I remember reading about literature regarding addiction, and it's saying that enabling somebody who's an addict was not a good thing to do. It was kind of like the core premise of it. Like, you can't enable people. You can't facilitate people's decline. You have to allow them to hit rock bottom so they could potentially maybe change and see the error of their ways. But now it's this reflexive empathy. And it's a societal reflexive empathy, and it's not compassionate. I don't want to prolong anyone's misery, so I don't give money to homeless people. Plus, I'm a working class guy. I don't got a lot of extra money to give. But when I see some of the elderly ones or some of the really clearly disadvantaged ones, I can't help myself. I'm a Christian. I don't want to, if I can help, I got a few extra bucks. So I see this one. I have my wife was driving. I'm like, honey, pull over. I'm going to give this lady some money. And she was older. She looked to be in her 60s payment. And as I get closer to her, she's got some kind of weird sign that says something. I don't really read it. Clearly, she wants some money. And I didn't have much. And I went to give it to her. And as I approached her, she had blood all over her face. She didn't know what was going on. She's in the middle of a busy parking lot. And she's just standing there with a sign asking people for money, while society around her is just acting like she doesn't exist. And like, look, man, I get it. That happens. But like, is that compassion? Can that be framed by some fucking naive progressive as a compassionate societal response? No, we have to take care of these people. We can't facilitate their depravity, and we certainly can't do it in our streets. We also have our own families to consider. Like, you don't want your children going to the parks in the HRM because they might step on a needle or have a conflict with a drug addict, mentally ill individual that should be in some semblance of a hospital or a facility or drug treatment program.
I have a more pessimistic view. I think this is about money. I think the bureaucrats are skimming off the top. So all this money that's supposed to go to mental health treatment, it goes to like nonprofits, and it goes to building someone's, I don't know, veranda. Some bureaucrat.
I wouldn't question that. I'd say that's definitely occurring. Many things can be true at the same time. And there's a lot of people that are benefiting from this system, namely the people that are employed to facilitate it. Lots of these at a municipal level, there's lots of like little nonprofits where people are employed to work there and stuff. And it's crazy, man. It really is. And it's just getting worse. And I'm seeing no one say anything common sense about it. But it's like I say, the ludicrous aspect of it for me is that they say that this is compassionate. It's compassionate to let these people literally just like live in squalor and use drugs in our parks. And if we don't want to do that, you're a fascist. It's like, I'm compassionate. I want to help these people, man. But I certainly don't want them in my neighborhood, in my park. I really don't. And I don't care. You could admonish me for that. I have no shame in that perspective. I think it's very rational.
Sabjul says, I wouldn't send my children to the park to encounter such a scene.
That's right. 100%. And all parents are the same, man. All parents are the same. In fact, if you see children in the parks these days, you probably question their parents. Like, what's going on with your parents, bro? Like, how could they let you come here unsupervised?
Yeah, the world is changing from when I was a child. I want to bring up self-governed. He's got more nationalistic views. Like, he wasn't raised Christian, but he believes that, you need something like Christianity to be an anchor. And he says, going back to what you said, he says it's about nationalism versus globalism. Do you agree with that?
To an extent, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Nationalism is a hedge against globalism. But there's a difference between nationalism and patriotism. And a nationalist will make excuses for his country when it's wrong, but a patriot will try to correct his country when it's wrong. And I really think that's a subtle difference there. I don't consider myself a nationalist, but I understand the premise of what he's saying. We would obviously have to have a national identity as a hedge against globalism. But right now, economically, the globalist system is kind of being deconstructed. Seemingly, there's things happening. So, but yeah, I think it's important to really differentiate between patriotism and nationalism. Nationalism on some level, and obviously that's my own definition. Like I find that national-minded people will kind of, no matter what, they have a loyalty, an unwavering loyalty to their nation. When a patriotic Westerner, more libertarian type of a mindset would be like, I'm going to be cautious of my country as well. You know what I mean? Because it's like, that's one of the big things we got to be cautious of is power. And the more decentralized, the better. So, I mean, nationalism is better than globalism. Individuals are the ultimate minority, though. So, I mean.
Yeah, I've had self-governed on a few times. He's a highly intelligent person. The story I always tell is when the Quebec referendum happened in 1995, I was very patriotic. I was very nationalistic. And then after COVID, I kind of started doubting that. I'm like, did the government just use my nationalism against me? Because the government just tried to kill me for 4 years.
It's by its very nature. Like power does that by its very nature. And you see it's set up these bureaucracies and these bigger bureaucracies, and its nature is to grow and to accumulate and to accrue power and to consolidate power. It's like, that's why you need, checks and measures to ensure that doesn't occur to the extent where the people are subjugated. In Canada, I truly, like I've said this before, I feel like we're absent real political reform, any manifestation of it. I feel like a subject. I feel like I'm being ruled over. I keep saying like Canada's like not just a resource colony, but a labor colony. We're like a labor colony, and we just got appointed a new warden, and he's a real tyrant. And all of the debt-ridden wage slaves were arguing with each other about their warden and this warden. But I mean, if the system at a systemic level, if the flaws are there, it doesn't matter who the new warden is. We're still going to be subjugated. We're still going to be, a subject of this system.
You mentioned checks and balances. If we're going to reform Canada, where would you start? Like the Governor General, do you think we should keep that person or remove it?
Yeah, I would full reform constitutional republic somehow. Now that I wouldn't know how that would look like. I don't have that depth of political knowledge for like systemic political knowledge to say how we would go from a Westminster Parliament to some semblance of a constitutional republic. But that's the only answer. You said really like almost a carbon copy of an American style system. And if we could do that, that's the obvious way for us. And for Westerners, like I'm from Nova Scotia, man. I was born in Toronto. I was raised in Cape Breton, and I live in Halifax. So like, I don't have any ties to Western Canada. I have a lot of similar political views as a lot of my friends from Alberta. So if I was, though, I would be like, forget you guys, man. And I wish as well. But I would be an advocate for Alberta's separation, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind I would. But for me, I still, it's like I wish them well, and I'll support them if I can. Because that's what I would do if I was there, right?
Yeah, I'm careful not to. I try not to support Alberta's separation publicly because I have a lot of friends whose parents or grandparents fought and died for this country in wars, and it offends them when I say that. But I think it would be in Alberta's best interest to get a little bit more independence, sovereignty agency.
It's like just like would Alberta join the Dominion of Canada today? Say, let's just for instance, for thought experiment, they were like, hey, we got a deal for you guys.
Would you like to join every year? We're going to take 50 or 30 billion from you and not give it back.
It's very relevant. It kind of really puts emphasis on the premise of it all. Like it's so crazy. And just representationally too, like look at the representation that Atlantic Canada has. And then look at versus the population that Alberta has. Like it's not congruent in any way. It's not fair in any regard. And like I said, if I was a Western Canadian, I would be all pro separation. And I might just uproot and just go. You never know. Life is strange.
It's not a really good counter argument they use for Alberta not separating. Telling people that things might get worse is not really a good way to convince them. Imagine I'm beating my wife and she wants to leave me. I'm like, no, you might find a guy that beats you up even worse.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a lot of these arguments. There's so little forethought and logic put into these arguments. No one thinks anymore. Like, for me, if I want to know how I feel on a given topic, I need to write 1,000 words on it. Not that number, but you know what I mean? I need to sit down and really clarify, put it out there and put it on paper. Like, how do I feel about this topic? And it provides you insight, because you might kind of have an idea or a sense, but until you hash it out in words, you really don't know how you can kind of think of it. So, like, I don't know if anyone really does that, if anyone thinks that thoroughly about things and it's the repercussions of it, because people are just, number one, their ego is involved. They want to win an argument. Nobody wants to be wrong. Everyone wants to be the cool guy. Everyone wants to be the smart guy. So, like, the ego, right away, you're dealing with people's ego. So if you attack a position with logic, a logical argument, right away, you're going to evoke an adversarial response, that jab back, like I mentioned before. And that's what happens with these political conversations. At the end of the day, we have more in common with each other than the conservatives and the liberals have in common with us. Like, it's the people versus this well-entrenched uniparty. I mean, it's just crazy that we can't see past the petty party tribalistic bullshit and actually try to find out a way we can get some unity in order to fix our country, because it's profoundly systemically corrupt.
So I'm actually optimistic that I find it seems like it's hopeless because everyone's saying we can't vote our way out of this. But I feel like Canadian public, it's like a couple of blind people in the dark feeling their way around. They're trying to find the light switch. And that light switch is, how do we organize to make, affect political change? Because these political parties are just distractions.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing too. And how does that organization look like? Because if you were going to do it, like, let's not talk about a political party, but just a grassroots concerned citizens group. And we're going to now try to pick a spot and maybe garner some interest in this. Right away, they're going to try to charge you with something. Like, our government is there. Like, they're going to say you're inciting, this is some kind of incitation of violence, or however they would frame it. But you're not going to be able to do that, especially after the trucker convoy. They're probably really watching that. I guarantee you. So how do you do that by avoiding that? Because, I advocate for people waking up, but I would never advocate for disorder or violence. It's not anything I support in any way. But with that said, I think peaceful non-compliance, we're at the point where we should start considering that as an option, as like real things like a tax strike. Like, I don't know, man. Are they going to keep flipping ridings to get their majority? I think there's another one up for grabs, isn't there?
I go back to prorogue. So they prorogued Parliament, and I think that was an inflection point for our history, because for the first time in a long time, we don't know what the hell our leadership is doing. And now you're saying they're flipping ridings. I'm looking about, like, how do we organize and take back our country, knowing that there's shenanigans are going on?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Payman. It's the big question, really, because I don't see anything that's filling me with optimism, to be honest with you. And the tribalism in Canada with and again, the uniparty type thing, like, I really believe that. I have no evidence, but it's just seemingly abundantly clear. It has been for a very long time. After these results, the way everything played out, and then Pierre losing his seat, not questioning anything, not questioning some of these results. And now where is he going to get a seat at? Oh, in Alberta. Isn't that convenient there to quell the separatist momentum, right? Like, I don't know, bro. Again, I could be reading this entirely wrong, and I'm open to that possibility. I'm not one of those arrogant people. I do not have my ego attached to any of these positions. I'm just trying to figure it out, man. And from my perspective, it's abundantly clear there's a uniparty. The way the PPC are still vilified, looking in retrospect now, I believe that Pierre was propped up specifically to avoid the PPC from garnering any relevance within the electorate, like becoming a real contender. Because, like I said, at the point when Pierre challenged for leadership of the CPC, that was when Canadians were really disenfranchised with the government. There was a massive contingent of the electorate that just had enough of this shit. And like, we're going to take that. And so what did we do? Well, they propped up Pierre for us. I was one of those guys. I was at those early rallies, man, and the people looked just like me. There were a bunch of like well-meaning Canadians that were scared of the government overreach, and they thought this guy was the solution. Why? Because he was saying he was. I waited in line. I had a picture with him. I had a chat with him. Told him about some of my concerns regarding globalism, and you know, a lot of the WEF was big at the time, as he was saying he was going to bar his ministers from having anything to do with it. But I mean, it all still goes on. Like, it's, I don't know, man. I find it disconcerting that we're able to see so much right now, because it makes me think that wherever they are at in their plan, it's past the point of us being able to really affect it in their minds. So they don't care that we could see everything, because it's kind of phenomenal when you think about it. Like, especially those WEF conferences, like when you listen to them, the audacity of these individuals, it's shocking. And that's like, they don't care, right? It was seemingly a misplay. I remember there was a Super Bowl when the WEF had a commercial on, and it was the first time we all heard collectively, like, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Like, well, you guys really should have consulted with someone regarding that one, man, because fuck. Was it predictive programming? Was it so we kind of know what's coming, so we don't have such a averse reaction to it? I mean, obviously it's all in the realm of speculation, but
when I picture that guy in my mind, I see him with, like, he's got a shaved head, he's got a monocle, he's got that cigarette with the long filter. You know, he's a sinister Monopoly guy.
He fits the criteria of Bond villain, like the look, the German accent too. It's so perfect. It makes you. I could see why so many secular people think, oh, this is a simulation. Because I mean, most religious people, yes, it is a simulation. Essentially, like, we're okay with that. We don't conceptualize it in that regard, but yes, it is made. We're in some kind of very, very unique, magical existence here. But you could see with some of the absurdity of it, why a lot of secular materialist thinkers will just go right away. Oh, it's got to be some kind of a simulation. This fucking can't be real. It's too crazy. Like, that's wild.
Hit the reset button.
Yeah.
What do we got? We got Prairie. She's asking, you know, what do we do now? What are your suggestions, JP?
Presently, like I said, I'm kind of in limbo, because I've been a staunch advocate for 51st state. I use the 51st state term still, but I mean, I think it would be more likely a territory or some kind of at this point, an economic union, potentially, like, you know, one military, no border, one currency, free trade, but we're still kind of maintain a bit of our identity. We're still Canada. There's still provinces. I don't know what it would look like. And there doesn't have to be any historical precedence for it. Shit happens, man. Systems, like, everyone's like, oh, well, that would have to be approved in Parliament and Congress. And it's like, look, man, from someone who studied history, I mean, I'm an amateur. I have no credentials, but things can happen, and things can happen suddenly with things like this. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but if I don't see that on the 27th, if they're not indicating that we're going to kind of integrate our economy more in some kind of economic union with America, if it's the opposite of that, if King Fuckface comes, King Charles, pardon my vulgarity, but if he comes here and he gives us some vacuous fucking recitation of globalist shit about climate change and stuff, I'm giving up on the whole America thing, and I'm just going to right away. I'm going to become more involved, likely with the PPC or a different smaller party alternative. I wouldn't be surprised if another party comes into fruition. There's a lot of people that, and I mean, I know you're a PPC member and you've run before. I'm not trying to shit on it or anything, but there's a lot of people that feel a little alienated, and I think it's relative to Maxime. I personally like him, so I really do. I think he's a hell of a guy. I think he's a nice guy. But there's a large contingent of the demographic in Canada that just will not get behind a French dude. It sounds so like petty, but I think it's true. And not just that, like, I'll be honest, man, and I do like him, So I'm kind of saying this not directly as myself, but he's not super charismatic. Like, and I think it's because of his English language skills. It's kind of hard for charisma to translate when he's like, I watched him on all the big American podcasts and I love what he's saying, but the way he's saying it, it's hard. And a lot of people will create a disconnect there. And it sounds like a really shitty reason, but it's politics. It's a really shallow and vacuous thing, modern politics. Like, so, I mean, I worry that that's going to kind of be an impediment for a lot of people. If not, maybe a rebranding for Maxime. Like, let's get him a fuck a makeover or something. I don't know. It didn't work for Pierre though. So, but that's
I have a different view. I think the problem is it's not Max. I think his headquarters at the PPC, like they're just completely incompetent. And Pereira, you're asking, what do we do now? I think the solution, it can come provincial, it can come federal, but we need a more grassroots party. We need one that's more democratic and that can affect political change. I don't know if you're following I have a podcast service at the Improv. We do it every Friday. Tomorrow we'll do one at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. And we're exploring, different options for a constitution that will help us get out of this mess. And the People's Party, it has a very limited amount of time, like maybe until the throne speech, and they have to do a Hail Mary, and they need to come up with a constitution and build up support again. Otherwise, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, it seems like a very in-group. And again, maybe I'm wrong on the Maxime thing. Maybe it is more at the headquarters level. But it seems like there's a real in-group there, and they really like it the way it is. And I mean, unfortunately, the way it is didn't really garner much momentum or results. So, I mean, let's just from a very cold and calculated business standpoint, if something's not responding in a market, you have to fundamentally change it. You have to, or it's kind of the epitome of insanity to presenting the same thing over and over again. I really want to see the PPC succeed. So I mean, I don't know. We'll definitely be getting involved in that. But again, it's such a dynamic time. Things can change so quickly. Like I said, for me, I feel like I'm in limbo until I see this throne speech and Parliament goes in. And I'm not hopeful. I mean, who knows ultimately? Like I mean, we're all trying to interpret something that's again, it's very dynamic. So we're all making, speculations and guesses, but I don't think it's that sensational, although it is rather sensational. But to think that there's going to be some kind of an announcement like that, it would explain a lot of things, like why there was no budget, all the weird shit with Carney getting in there. Like that was like, was this all planned? Was there something, behind the scenes that was worked out, and we just kind of got a sensational charade to kind of give us the perception of participatory governance or democracy?
Yeah, this not having a budget, that's a problem. Not having a government, that's another problem. Like technically, we don't have a government right now.
Yeah, we haven't for a long time, and I mean the just the way he's able to rule through the governor general. Like he got like all kinds of money, like 30 some billion, or I heard other people say $70 billion to like. How is he even doing this? And I know our system is so systemically undemocratic that there is these little tricks to do it through the governor general. And that's again, I've not researched this thoroughly. I should before I'm speaking on it, but that just seems just profoundly, it seems like a dictatorship. Like what is going on, and why is no one mad about this?
Can I tell you, it's just the way that our country evolved. So 400 or 500 years ago, whenever they came over, the king, England, they sent over a governor, and the governor ruled like a dictator, and the governor needs a council to advise him. So they came up with a council, and then eventually the locals are like, oh, we want more say. So they created an assembly. That assembly became the parliament, members of parliament, and the council became the Senate. And then slowly they took away the powers of the governor, but they never fully removed it. Now we have a prime minister, and the governor should just get removed. We need a full rebuild of everything.
Oh my, 100%. And it's so abundantly clear once you start to really look into it. And again, so many people, like again, we're in such an echo chamber on X and in these different realms where it's like people that are really paying attention. So we forget the general understanding of these issues in the population, or more profoundly within the electorate. Nobody knows what's going on, man. Like it's scary. Like the most impassioned arguments I get, when I get people angry and they're yelling at me for their perceptions of my opinion or for my opinion, most of the most impassioned arguments I receive are from people that don't understand the functional premise of our political system. They just have no idea. And what do you say to that? I can't say that without sounding arrogant, but I mean, I can't help it. It's like, dude, you don't know what you're speaking about. You have no context to even have an opinion. You should, though. It's kind of shameful that you don't. Maybe you should learn a little bit about this and then see where you stand on it. But they don't think like that because their ego gets involved, their identity, this kind of interpretation of themselves as a really smart guy, like everyone does. Everyone has this ego that's in there that you're wrestling with throughout your life and throughout your interactions. But when you get into these political realms, it comes out in full force, man. I see it with good friends because I talk politics. So, I mean, I'll be talking to a close friend of mine and it will get just heated, man, to where you have to say, like, bro, like, we've been friends a long time. Let's like step back and, kind of shame them on that end, and then they'll calm down a little bit. But people get really mad before they even really want to understand your premise or your point, and that's not a good sign.
Yeah, I don't even talk politics. I listen to my friends talk politics, but I just shrug my shoulders. JP, let's go to one last question. Again, it's from Self-Governed.
Sure.
He's asking, what is your definition of a nation?
It's a good question, man, and I'm not going to dismiss it. A nation is a group of people. I don't think it's an idea. I think it's a people. I think a nation is a people, and it's there is a culture there. So I mean, I'm not going to come at it from this entirely conceptual stance and say, well, a nation is a set of laws and ideals. No, a nation is a people. It's a people in a certain area. But for me, the biggest question is Canada a land and its people? Or is Canada Ottawa? Is Canada the Westminster parliamentary system? Like, can we differentiate that? Because I don't think it is. I think Canada is a land and the people that live here and the people that were born here and the people that came here that are playing Canada. And the people that are come here and aren't, they're still in their little, ethnic bubbles, or they're fighting the wars of their motherland. Like, no, I don't necessarily think so. But that's the more compelling question to ask yourself. Is Canada the land and the people, or is Canada the Westminster parliamentary system and these criminals in Ottawa?
Well, if you ask Ottawa, they'll say it's Ottawa.
Absolutely. Of course they would.
Yeah.
I hope that was an answer. I mean, I kind of think I see what he's looking for there, because a lot of people do. You hear it a lot with America, some of the discourse within the right, different right-leaning thinkers that'll say, like, is America the people? Is it the people that live there, or is it an idea? Is it this, overarching ideal? And I think it's a mixture of both. Really, it's very complicated. I could write 1,000 words on that question, no problem, and still not be entirely convinced where I stand on it. But it was a good question.
I won't answer the question. I'll just point out the absurdity of 10 years of Trudeau saying that we are a post-nationalist state, and then all of a sudden with the tariffs, they're like, "Oh, we're all Canadians. We're one nation. Elbows up."
Dude, it was phenomenal to watch that go down the way it did. It was truly phenomenal to me. I was blown away, because like the exact same people that did everything to demonize and dilute our sense of national identity turned around on a dime and wanted us to dance for them. That's what I said. It's like, you foolish peasants, dance peasants. And what do Canadians do? They put their elbows up, they started drooling on themselves, and they danced. They danced the exact steps they wanted them to dance. And here we are.
Did you've seen that meme for the Brentwood boomer?
Yeah, with the dude giving the fingers. Yeah,
that guy, like, if there's an increase of like abuse against seniors, he's going to be responsible for that. I'm worried about letting my parents out now at night.
honest to God, it's funny though you say that, because he really is, that encapsulates that picture, the sentiment that young people feel like we're getting from the boomers. And I hate to do it, man, because if I want to get some hate, and I get a lot of hate, I'm a very contrarian thinker, but if I want to elicit a reaction from my followers on X, I got to single out boomers as a demographic. And right away, I'll get 20 people like, I'm not like that, I'm a boomer. It's like, look, guys, I'm generalizing. I'm not saying all. And I don't, even the ones that are like that dude giving the fingers and that sentiment, I feel bad for him on some level, man, because he thinks he's right. That's something we kind of got to be aware of. Like, as carefully as you came to the conclusions you come to, other people, even if they didn't do the diligence you did or the vigilance in researching, they think they did. So, I mean, they believe in themselves as much as you do. So, I mean, like, I kind of have some sympathy for the boomers who were told their whole lives that these institutions like the CBC and the CTV were very reliable institutions, and our political systems are very progressive and modern, and we're really great for living in Canada. Like, they believe that, and they'll fight you for it, man.
You know, you're right. And I have to constantly remind myself not to generalize. It's not all people born in, 1945 era. It's the ones that were born in that time in Canada, and they've basically been working for the government. It's the ones that have been milking the system. They got the government pension. That's the one that the youth are pissed off at.
100%. And there's another dynamic too, I've mentioned before, but like, there's a lot of people circumstantially that weren't just kind of insulated from a lot of the economic problems. Their assets accrued more value. Like, people that owned homes and had paid their homes off in 2010. I mean, now taxes are going to suck for them on the flip side of that. But at the same time, like, they now have a massive asset. Their equity increased. So there are people that kind of benefited from that, and that's that class. Plus, they're very reliant on their pensions. Or they want their pensions, even if they don't necessarily, you know what I mean? Like, we paid into that, we want it, and I get it. I'm not trying to trivialize that perspective, but that's, the dynamics here are so complex, and there's so many of them. It's just, it's hard. You got to challenge yourself not to be reductive on certain things, because it's like everyone's kind of got a point.
Yeah, I guess we can end it on that note. Do you want to maybe tell the audience where they can go and follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm only on X still. That's going to change very soon. You can find me Semper Veritas X on the X platform. I'm going to be launching my own podcast soon. As you can see, I upgraded my lighting. I got a really cool microphone now. So I'm going to make it happen. I have a title. I'm going to call it Qualified as Conjecture. It's kind of a mouthful, but it saves me a lot of time, because honestly, man, I don't want to have to qualify everything as conjecture. We're living in a time where things are being kept from us blatantly. And you're either going to be the kind of guy that's going to accept that and not question the narrative, or you're going to be the kind of guy that unabashedly questions the narrative. I prefer to be the latter. So my podcast will be called Qualified as Conjecture, and it's going to be a fearless conspiracy theory show. I want to get into it, man. I want to see what's going on from a Canadian perspective, which is going to be a little unique. So it's a niche market.
And I guess it's going to be on all platforms, YouTube, Rumble, X.
I'm going to try to, diversify all the platforms and get that all in line. I'm working with a couple of friends for some of the technical advice, because I'm very, very naive and green when it comes to all this. It's easy to come on with you guys, like when I go on with you or Jason James or whomever else, because I just click a button and I'm joining something. But to kind of produce it all on my own, it's like I'm very... I very much suck with technology, so it's a learning process too. But I have some help. So
why don't we give a shout out for Jason James as well? I love that guy. He's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go check out his podcast, Brave New Normal. He has he's got a connection with Sam Cooper, and he interviews him a lot. So be sure to check that out.
It's very important too, and it's very important to acknowledge that in Canada, especially on social media, that there's a sea of convoluted clickbait artists and people that are certainly working directly for political parties, and they prop themselves up as independent voices, and they're not. Jason James is not one of those guys. He's looking for the truth. And the Brave New Normal is an excellent conduit to kind of get a sense of what's going on in Canada. unofficially. The Sam Cooper stuff, Mark Cohodes. The episode with me was exceptional. You definitely want to check that one out. But again, Payman, it was awesome talking with you, man. It always is. I really enjoy our conversations.
All right, JP, thanks for coming on, and we'll get you back on at some point, hopefully.
Absolutely. Take care, brother.
And if you start a podcast, I want to get invited.
Oh, you got to be, man. You got to be.
All right. Until then, goodbye.
Take care, brother.